My parents told me I was too broke to join them on the family vacation. I didn't argue. I just nodded along.
But when they came back to an empty house, they called me, screaming.
When they first started planning the trip, I didn't think much of it. We weren't exactly the kind of family that went on extravagant vacations, but my mom had been going on and on for weeks about how much we all needed a break. My dad would nod in agreement, tossing out ideas about resorts and sightseeing tours. My sister, Emily, was already scrolling through Instagram, hunting for the most photogenic spots. Naturally, I assumed I was part of the plan. Why wouldn't I be?
I was their son, after all. But as the details started coming together, something felt off. At first, it was subtle. They'd talk about flights over dinner but never ask me which one worked for me. My mom would sigh about how expensive everything was, then glance at me like I was the reason their bank account was suffering. And Emily, she started dropping little hints, saying things like, "I can't wait for our trip," instead of our family trip. Still, I brushed it off.
Maybe I was just overthinking things. Maybe they were waiting for the right moment to officially invite me. That moment never came.
One night, about 2 weeks before they were supposed to leave, I was sitting at the kitchen table when my dad finally came out and said it.
"Look, we need to talk about the vacation."
I nodded, expecting him to ask about my schedule or something. Instead, he shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable.
"We did the math, and we just can't afford to cover you this time." My stomach twisted. "Cover me?" I repeated, confused. "I wasn't expecting you to pay for me." He sighed, like I was the one making this difficult.
"Even if you paid your own way, the trip is already planned, and there just isn't room in the budget for extra accommodations.
Flights are expensive. The rental is only big enough for the three of us."
I glanced at my mom, waiting for her to step in, to offer some kind of reassurance, maybe soften the blow. But she just kept her eyes on her plate. "I could book my own flight," I said carefully.
"I don't need a fancy hotel. I'll sleep on the couch if I have to."
Emily let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head as she twirled her fork in her pasta.
"What's so funny?" I asked, my face heating.
"Oh, come on," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're barely scraping by as it is.
How are you going to afford a trip like this?" I clenched my fists under the table.
"We just think it would be better if you sat this one out," my dad added, his tone final.
"Next time, okay?" "Next time." I nodded, forcing a small smile. "Yeah," I said. "Next time." I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't ask why they never even considered including me. I just sat there, pretending everything was fine. But later that night, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling, something inside me shifted. They thought I was too broke to come along? Fine. But if I was too broke for a vacation, then I sure as hell couldn't afford to keep furnishing their house for free.
The next morning, my parents acted like nothing had happened. My mom hummed as she made coffee, my dad buried himself in the newspaper, and Emily sat glued to her phone, probably bragging about the upcoming trip to her friends.
I sipped my coffee quietly, watching them.
They had no idea what I was planning. At first, it was just a petty thought, something to make myself feel better. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized just how much of my life was wrapped up in that house. See, when I moved back home a year ago after a rough patch, they made it clear they saw me as a burden. They never said it outright, but it was in the little things. The sighs. The passive-aggressive comments about how grown adults should pull their weight.
The thing was, I had been pulling my weight. More than that. Most of the furniture in that house? Mine. The big sectional in the living room?
I bought it when their old couch was falling apart.
The dining table? That was me, too.
The TV, the kitchen appliances, half the dishes in the cabinets, I had paid for all of it.
Not to mention, my name was still on the lease.
They loved acting like I was freeloading, but without me, they'd be sitting on folding chairs and eating off paper plates.
And now, they were leaving me behind like I was nothing? Fine.
I calmly finished my coffee, pulled out my phone, and started making plans. By the time they came back, their house was going to be a lot emptier.
I started small.
The first night after they went to bed, I grabbed a few things, my air fryer, my blender, a couple of expensive kitchen knives I'd bought when theirs started going dull. They wouldn't notice those missing right away, but they'd definitely feel it when they tried making breakfast in the morning.
Then I moved on to the bigger stuff. My name was still on the lease, and more importantly, I had every right to take what was mine. So over the next few days, I systematically packed up everything I had paid for. The sectional? Gone. I hired a guy with a truck to help me move everything into a storage unit. The TV? Unplugged, wrapped up neatly in a blanket, and carried out like it was never there. The dining table and chairs? Taken apart piece by piece and loaded up.
By the third day, most of the living room and kitchen were empty. The house was starting to look bare, but I wasn't done yet. I stepped into Emily's room and spotted the vanity mirror she used for her makeup. Funny, she always acted like she was better than me, but guess who had bought that mirror for her birthday last year? That's right, me. So, I took it. In my parents' room, I grabbed the expensive comforter set I had given them for Christmas, the one my mom had gushed over, going on about how soft and luxurious it felt. Yeah, well, I like the idea of a family vacation. And yet, here we were. By the time their departure day rolled around, I was nearly done. I even went with them to the airport, waving them off with a smile, playing the part of the good son. They had no clue what was waiting for them when they got back. With my parents and Emily officially on their way, I had the house to myself. No more passive-aggressive remarks. No more judgmental stares over dinner. Just silence and work to do. I had already moved most of the furniture, but there were still smaller things to take care of. The expensive silverware set my mom liked to bring out for guests? Mine. The framed artwork hanging in the hallway? I paid for that. The coffee maker my dad relied on every morning but never once thanked me for? Well, he'd be waking up to nothing when he got back. The best part? They didn't even own the beds. When I first moved back, they had been sleeping on the same old, lumpy mattresses they'd had since I was a kid. My mom constantly complained about back pain, so what did I do? I spent my own money I could barely spare, to get them a brand new mattress set. So, naturally, I took them back. By the time I was finished, the house looked abandoned, like a model home someone had walked away from halfway through staging. The living room? Just a big empty space. The kitchen cabinets? A few mismatched plates and nothing else. The bedrooms? Bare floors and bed frames with nothing on them. It was perfect. I took one last look around, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: satisfaction. Not guilt. Not regret. Just relief. I locked the door behind me and walked away. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just reacting to what they did, I was taking control. Now, all I had to do was wait for the fireworks. The first few days after they left were peaceful. I went to work, slept soundly in my own bed, one they could no longer claim, and enjoyed the quiet. I wasn't worried. I had done everything legally. Every piece of furniture, every appliance, every single item I took. I had receipts with my name on them. They just never realized how much of their life had been built on my back. 3 days passed. Then, the phone calls started. At first, it was just casual texts. Mom, hey, everything okay? Haven't heard from you. Emily, hope you're not too bored at home, lol. I ignored them. Let them enjoy their vacation. Let them believe everything was fine. Then, on the day they were set to come back, I got one last text from my dad. Dad, we land at 6. Can you have dinner ready? I almost laughed. Instead of replying, I turned off my phone, grabbed some takeout, and waited. I could picture it so clearly: the key turning in the lock, the bags hitting the floor, the split second of confusion as they stepped inside. Maybe they'd call out for me, thinking I had just rearranged things. Maybe Emily would walk into her room, expecting to sit at her vanity, only to find it gone. And then? The realization. The rage. It happened just as I expected. At exactly 6:45 p.m., my phone, now turned back on, exploded with calls. First, my mom. Then my dad. Then Emily. One after the other. Over and over. Then came the texts. Mom, where is everything? Dad, are you serious? Where is our stuff? Emily, you took my mirror? I leaned back in my chair, taking my time before responding. Me, oh, I thought I was too broke to contribute to the family. Figured I couldn't afford to furnish your house either. Silence. Then, after a few minutes, my phone rang again. I answered. My mom's voice screeched through the speaker. What did you do? I smiled. The real fun was just beginning. I held the phone away from my ear as her voice grew louder, full of fury. Do you have any idea what you've done? We just got home, and the house is empty. I waited a beat, then answered, completely calm. Yeah. Weird. Almost like I was never really part of the household to begin with. What are you talking about? My mom snapped, her voice sharp with irritation. I sighed, stretching out on my couch, the same couch that used to sit in their living room. Well, I said casually, you told me I was too broke to contribute, right? I figured if I couldn't afford a vacation, then I definitely couldn't afford to keep furnishing your house for free. Silence. For the first time since she had called, she didn't have a snappy response. Then, in the background, I heard my dad growl, put him on speaker. A moment later, his voice came through, tight with barely contained rage.
This is theft. You have no right to do this. I laughed. Oh, I have every right, Dad.
My name was on the lease, I paid for every single thing I took, and I have the receipts to prove it.
Want me to send you copies? You ungrateful little. I cut him off. Ungrateful? That's rich. Let's talk about gratitude, shall we?
Let's talk about how, for the past year, I've paid for your furniture, your TV, your kitchen supplies, even your mattress, while you two treated me like an inconvenience.
We let you live here, my mom shot back, her voice rising. I scoffed. You let me? You mean the same house where I paid rent? The same house where I covered half the groceries? The same house where I furnished nearly every room while you two acted like I was freeloading?
Then came Megan, her voice dripping with outrage.
You took my mirror. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, the mirror I bought you as a gift. Feel free to replace it. Oh wait, that might be tough without my money covering the bills. That was the final straw for my dad. You bring everything back. Tonight. No.
His voice dropped, low and threatening.
You think this is funny? You think you can just take everything and walk away?
I smiled to myself.
I don't think I can. I know I can. The line went dead. I exhaled, tossing my phone onto the couch. That went exactly how I thought it would. But I wasn't naive. I knew this wasn't over. My dad wasn't the type to let things go. My mom? She'd guilt-trip me into the ground if she thought it would work. And Megan? Oh, she'd throw a fit.
Still, for the first time in years, I felt free. No more being treated like a second-class family member.
No more being the financial safety net they walked all over. I had taken back what was mine.
Now, I just had to see how far they were willing to go to try and take it back.
I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of missed calls and texts. Mom, this is disgusting. We are your family. Dad, you have 24 hours to bring everything back or we take legal action. Megan, I cannot believe you. You are seriously the worst brother ever. Legal action? That actually made me laugh. I almost wanted to see them try. By noon, my phone rang again. This time, I picked up. This has gone far enough, my dad said immediately.
His voice was low, controlled, the way it always got when he was really mad.
We've talked it over, and here's what's going to happen. I stayed silent, waiting. You are going to bring everything back tonight, or we will call the police and report you for theft. I had expected this. What I hadn't expected was how much amusement I'd feel hearing it. Theft? I repeated, feigning confusion. Dad, you know that's not going to work, right?
I don't care what you think, he snapped.
If you don't return what you took, we will press charges. I sighed. Dad, let's break this down. 1. I have proof that everything I took was mine. Receipts, bank statements, even my name on the lease. You really want to go to court over this? Because I will counter with all of that. I let that sink in before continuing. 2. If you try to lie to the police, that's called filing a false report. And you really don't want to do that. Silence. And 3, I added, if you think throwing legal threats at me is going to scare me into giving in, then you really don't know me at all. I could hear my dad breathing hard through the phone, but before he could say anything else, my mom jumped in. Sweetheart, she cooed, her voice suddenly sickly sweet. Let's not fight. Let's just fix this, okay? We can talk about things, but taking everything was extreme, don't you think? I almost laughed. There it was, the guilt trip. Right on schedule. No, Mom. What's extreme is excluding me from a family vacation while expecting me to keep furnishing your house for free. She let out a dramatic sigh, like I was being unreasonable on purpose. We thought you'd understand. We thought you'd be happy for us, not act like this. I let out a dry chuckle. Oh, I understand perfectly. You just didn't think I'd actually stand up for myself. You're being so childish. Megan snapped in the background. Like, grow up already. I exhaled. All right, here's my offer. I'm done with this conversation. You can either accept that I took back what was mine, or you can keep throwing tantrums. Either way, I don't care. That was the final straw for my dad. He snapped. You are out of this family. You hear me? If you don't bring everything back, you're done. I just smiled. I thought I was already out when you left me behind. And with that, I hung up. For a moment, I half expected them to show up at my door.
My dad was the type who needed control, and I had just ripped it away from him. But the knock never came.
Instead, silence stretched for hours. No more calls. No more texts.
It was a relief until I got an unexpected message from my aunt, my mom's sister.
"Aunt Karen, hey, can we talk?" I hesitated.
I hadn't told anyone else in the family what happened, but clearly, my parents had started running their mouths. I called her, and she answered immediately.
"Sweetheart, what is going on?" she demanded. I sighed. "Let me guess. My parents told you I robbed them blind?" She hesitated. "They said you took everything from the house, yes.
But something about the way they said it didn't sit right with me. So, I told her everything. How they had excluded me from the vacation, how they always treated me like an afterthought, how most of the furniture and appliances were actually mine. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed. "I knew they were selfish," she said.
"But this?
This is low, even for them."
That surprised me. "You're on my side?" "Of course I am. You've been helping them for years, and they treated you like this? They don't deserve your kindness." For the first time in days, I felt a little lighter. At least someone saw my side of things. "I appreciate that," I said. She exhaled. "You're not alone in this.
And trust me, this isn't over."
"Not by a long shot."
And she wasn't kidding.
The next morning, I woke up to even more missed calls and texts.
But this time, they weren't just from my parents and Megan. My uncle, my grandmother, even a couple of cousins had started weighing in. Clearly, my parents had launched a full-blown family smear campaign.
"Cousin Jake, dude, what's going on? Your mom is saying you stole everything from them?" "Grandma, honey, I don't understand. Why would you do this? Can't you all just talk it out?" "Uncle Mark, I don't know what happened, but your dad is livid. Maybe you should try making peace before things go too far." I groaned. They were really trying to paint me as the villain.
I wasn't about to sit here and let them twist the truth, so I sent a simple message in the family group chat.
Since mom and dad are telling everyone their side of the story, let me share mine. I didn't steal anything.
I took back everything I personally paid for over the years, furniture, appliances, even things I gifted them. They excluded me from a family vacation because I was too broke, but had no problem expecting me to keep furnishing their house for free. So, I left them with exactly what they contributed, nothing. Then, for good measure, I attached photos of my receipts, proof that everything I took was mine.
The chat exploded.
Some family members were stunned. Others were furious, but not at me.
Aunt Karen chimed in first. "I knew it. You two should be ashamed of yourselves."
Then came the best message of all.
"Grandma, I raised you better than this. You owe him an apology."
For the first time, my parents had no response.
The family group chat turned into a war zone. Half the relatives tried to stay out of it, but the other half? They were livid. "Uncle Mark, so let me get this straight. You took his money, his furniture, his generosity, and then left him behind like an afterthought?" Aunt Karen, exactly. And now they're playing the victims because they got caught. Cousin Jake, wow. Just wow.
And they expected him to just sit there and take it.
My parents never replied, but Megan did. "Megan, oh my God, can everyone chill? It was just a vacation. He's being dramatic." I couldn't help myself. I laughed. "Me, oh, I'm being dramatic? So when you all treated me like an ATM and left me behind, I was supposed to just smile and keep paying for everything?" Again, no response. Then, hours later, my mom finally cracked. She called. Against my better judgment, I answered.
Her voice was quieter now.
Less shrill. Less angry. "Was this really necessary?" she asked softly. I let out a slow breath. "Yes." She sighed. "Your father is upset." "Oh, he's upset?" I said, unable to hold back the bitterness.
Imagine how I felt when I realized my own family didn't even think I was worth including.
Silence.
"Mom, I'm done," I said firmly.
"I'm done being the one who always gives while getting nothing in return. I'm done being your safety net." "We never wanted to hurt you," she said weakly. I closed my eyes. "But you did." Another long silence. Then, finally, she spoke again. "What do you want us to do?" she asked. I had already thought about this. "I don't want an apology you don't mean. I don't want fake excuses. I just want space." Her breath hitched. "You don't mean that." "I do." This time, I hung up first. "It's been a few months now.
My parents tried a couple more times to reach out, but I stood my ground. Megan never apologized, not that I expected her to. But the biggest shift? The rest of my family saw them for who they really were. I'm not bitter. If anything, I feel lighter, like I finally let go of something that had been weighing me down for years. And their house? Last I heard, they're still scrambling to replace everything. I hope they enjoy the empty space. It's exactly what they left me with.